Happy Tuesday, and what is happening, Heat Seekers? I know it's looking a little lonely in here. It's just me tonight, but we're going to have some fun. I'm here to help answer any questions you have, whether it's picking up waivers or making trades or making decisions about your roster. I'm here to help. So I know I'm going to be flying solo, and we'll see how long this goes. If you guys got lots of questions, I will have lots of answers, and I will stay with you as long as I can. With that being said, we do this every Tuesday, whether it's me and Rick, me and guests. So hopefully you guys drop likes, drop comments. We are going to listen and help as best we can. We do this on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings as well. With that being said, also, I want to jump into it. We got lots of news and stuff. So I'm going to start. We're going to talk some news, give you some ideas on what to do with some of these things. And if you have questions, drop them in the chat because I will gladly answer them to the best of my abilities. Let's have some fun with it tonight. So, first and foremost, Dallas Cowboys resurrecting Martavis Bryant from the scrap heap. He's gotten allowed to come back in, which is exciting. You know, Martavis Bryant, many years ago, was a hot commodity in fantasy football. Signs to the Cowboys practice squad, and this will be an interesting pickup to see what happens. This is not a guy that I would tell you to go jump at and go get just yet, unless you're in a deep dynasty league and you just got roster spots to spare. Let's see what happens. This guy's now in his 30s. Does he have what he had before? You know, we've seen him in the XFL, indoor football, all sorts of things. So it's a fun pickup. It's not one of those things that I'm jumping at the bit to go get. But why not? You know, if you have roster spots, you want to see what happens. I mean, the Cowboys can always use depth at receiver. We also have the news that, and let me scroll down a little bit, Kyler Murray activated off PUP. I have Kyler Murray in a few spots. I am not a huge Kyler Murray fan long-term because I think we know what we're getting out of Kyler Murray. He's fast. He can get you a lot on the ground rushing. He's pretty good as a passer, but he gets hurt a bunch. So that's a concern. Kyler Murray is going to be a guy that most likely is going to be fun once he gets his feet back under him and gets you some good fantasy points. But if you start to see him producing well, you have one of two options you can do. You can keep playing him and hope that you keep getting those fantasy points, or you take Kyler and you try to move him for someone else. For me, I actually have a league where Kyler Murray was on PUP. I also had Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy. It wasn't a super flex. I literally traded Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to roll with Brock Purdy. I'm 8-0 in this league, which is crazy to think about. This is the first time in a long time I've been undefeated in a fantasy league. So I took Trevor Lawrence, flipped him, got Chris Godwin and a couple picks next year. So I trust that Kyler Murray can at least give me backup quarterback potential. I'm going to roll Brock Purdy. Kyler Murray's my backup. You know, that's kind of where I stand with him. I don't love Kyler Murray. I think he's a better fantasy player. And also, saw a funny post on Twitter. Don't forget, new Call of Duty comes out this weekend. So you never know how that's going to affect Kyler Murray. That being said, we know Rams started Brett Rippon this weekend. They released Brett Rippon the weekend after. They went and signed Carson Wentz. So I saw that here, and that's a really interesting signing because we don't know exactly how long Stafford's going to be out just yet, you know, and he's just dinged up, right? Stafford's been around, been beat up over the years. I know my Lions didn't do him any favors as much as I love Stafford in his time with Detroit. So Carson Wentz coming in isn't super exciting, but definitely something to have on your radar because we don't know exactly how this thing's going to shake out the next few weeks. That being said, you saw it just a second earlier. Giants signed Jacob Eason to the practice squad. Tommy DeVito, and this might ruffle some feathers, but I thought Tommy DeVito didn't look terrible. They just didn't give him a lot of action when it comes to passing. You know, his attempts once he came in from Daniel Jones were limited. So, Tommy DeVito was a guy I went and grabbed off waivers just to kind of keep him from other owners getting him. Tommy DeVito is probably going to get another start or two, and if things keep going the way they're going, maybe they flip it to Jacob Eason, maybe they don't. DeVito coming out of Illinois wasn't super intriguing prospect. Didn't look great in the Big Ten when we saw him in his time in college. But, watching him against a not great Raiders defense, slung the ball decent. Had good zip on it. His deep shots obviously got intercepted, so they weren't great, but definitely somebody to keep an eye on. Stash them. If you've got room, Jacob Eason, Tommy DeVito, Carson Wentz, if you're hurting at quarterback and you've dealt with injuries, you can stash them. That's what I've done in the leagues that I've got those guys. none of these guys are really going to be super strong starters and help you out. So if you're a team that's competing or contending or even contending for a playoff spot and you need quarterback help, I would look elsewhere. But that being said, sometimes fantasy is taking guys that other owners can't. So I would encourage you guys, if you're struggling at quarterback and you just want to keep someone else from getting them, go get them. I did it. If Sully jumps in the chat, Sully, you'll see. We had a conversation about it today because he was not happy that I spent, a significant portion of my fab in a league where there just isn't anybody to spend it on just so that other people couldn't get them. Thought it was crazy. So, like I said, if you guys got questions, throw them in the chat. I'm going to stick around here for a little while and try to help you guys out as best I can. I know that I'll be flying solo tonight, but I'm here to help. It's going to be interesting because we're getting dangerously close to playoffs for a lot of folks. I know that in a few of my leagues, I've seen trades ramp up like crazy because we've got trade deadlines on the horizon. We've got playoffs starting for most of us probably 4 or 5 weeks. With that being said, I'm going to just jump right in and grab any questions. So if you guys are live in the chats right now, I love it. Thank you guys as always. We were going to take these questions live. We're just going to get right into it. Jose, welcome, my friend. Is it worth to get Tank Dell? I have Flowers, Puka, Olave, and Devonta Smith. Tank Dell is a really strong depth receiver that if CJ Stroud continues to do what he's been doing, which, he had a little slump for a couple weeks, but bounced back strong last week, I would have no problems getting Tank Dell. Jose, my question, though, would be, what does your roster look like? So what are you having to do to get Tank Dell? Because I think Olave, Puka, and Smith are probably the ones that you're considering as your weekly starters. Flowers definitely as well, because he's looking good in that Baltimore offense. So if you have to hurt yourself in another position that you need the player, I wouldn't be jumping all over it because you've got, 4 strong receivers. If you have the room, absolutely. Tank Dell has shown us this year as a rookie that he can be startable weeks. I've put him in lineups plenty of weeks this year, and yes, it's a rookie, so you never know if you're going to have that week where you get very little out of him, but he's looked electric with the ball in his hands, and CJ Stroud continues to improve week on week, and I think it's a solid move if you need some depth at receiver. Just don't hurt yourself at running back or tight end or whatever the case may be. So if you give me some more context about your league setup, maybe how your roster is built, I will gladly answer that as well. But yes, in a vacuum, absolutely, Tank Dell's definitely rosterable. If he's a free agent, you got to get him. Sheila, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Hello. Lost Cousins, still have Stafford, who unfortunately is hurt. 1 QB, 12 teams. Picked up Minshew, Dobbs, Badgett, Young, Wilson. RNZ, O'Connell, DeVito are still on waiver. Should I pick up one in first place? Ooh, well, congratulations that you're in first place. We love being in first place. You want to stay there. I would say Aiden O'Connell would probably be the safer of the two if you have a roster spot, because the Raiders have really clung to him and they're going to keep rolling him out week on week. I don't think with what you have already with even Dobbs and just Wilson, you're probably not starting him. But if you need depth, I would drop Badgett for O'Connell probably in a heartbeat, just because O'Connell feels like a safer play there. So that would be what I would do. Do you have to? No. I think that you'll be fine rolling out Wilson as your 1, Dobbs, Young as your 2. DeVito, I'm not touching with the roster you have. I don't think you need to go that far yet, especially because you've got 3 starting quarterbacks, especially in a 1 QB. And I'll be honest, truth be told, in the 1 QB leagues that I'm in, where I'm typically in the top 2-3 positions, I normally only have 1, maybe 2 quarterbacks. Like right now, the league where I'm 8-0, I have more than 2 quarterbacks just because I got lucky and drafted well and just waited until trades popped up. So I had Trevor Lawrence, had Brock Purdy, had Kyler Murray on PUP. Was rolling with Purdy and Lawrence. Now that Kyler's back, I went and upgraded wide receiver, and I traded Trevor Lawrence for Chris Godwin and a couple of picks in a dynasty, obviously. So what I would do if I were you is I would roll with Wilson as your 1, Dobbs as your 2, Young as your 3, and I would flip Badgett for Aiden O'Connell. I wouldn't worry about DeVito because I don't think DeVito ever sees your starting lineup, and I would be happy with that. All right, Jose, thank you, my friend, for adding a little more context. So my team is Hurts, Puka, Olave, must be Rashad White, Ramondre Stevenson, Kincaid, and Flowers. Also, Tank is on waivers. I can just drop Roshan. So my concern with dropping Roshan for Tank is if you just have two running backs, and if either of them, people aren't probably jumping all over getting Roshan at the moment, though. If you're not having, so if your lineup is flexible, so if you can start, two running backs, two receivers, and you have a couple flex options, Tank makes sense to pick up in Roshan's place. If you don't have a lot of flexibility to how your starting lineup looks, you might need to keep Roshan just to make sure you've got a third running back. But even right now, Roshan and that whole Chicago running backfield has been tough. So I think you're okay dropping Roshan for Tank. Hopefully you have some flex spots so that you can kind of move players around to fit your starting lineups. But Tank is going to produce more. Yeah. So yes, it's flex. Perfect. So yeah, I'd be fine with that. I would be okay dropping Roshan for Tank just because White and Stevenson are going to be your guys, and then you can flex in, the best plays at wide receiver. Absolutely fine with that. I think that's a better move for you, and it gets you ready for depth for the playoff run. So do it up, feel happy about it, and I think that's a solid move for you. I only have Stafford Minshew. Sorry, all the others are. My bad. How ridiculous. Want to know if I should pick up one of those. Okay, so you have Stafford Minshew. So let's go back and make sure we got it. I would get Wilson because he probably, it's probably matchup dependent, but him or Minshew are probably your starters. Stafford, we got to see him healthy, and we got to figure out what's going on there before I trust him in my lineup right now. I would be okay getting Wilson for sure because he has to be rostered. The rest of them, I wouldn't be in a hurry to get. Bryce Young is not great right now and is struggling. And that team, you would think you'd get better production just because they have to throw a bunch, but they're trying to still stay balanced, and it's just a tough situation. So I would definitely go pick up Wilson. I would not be quick to drop something really valuable to get him because worst case, you roll with Minshew for now. And go with it that way because Minshew's not been bad. So let's take a look at just to make sure that we're giving you the best advice possible. So Minshew has 3 of the last 4 weeks he's given you solid, kind of high-end QB2, low-end QB1 production against Cleveland. Obviously had a really good game. 305, 2 touchdowns, got you a couple touchdowns rushing, which you don't see a lot of that out of the rushing side of things. So that's the tough part. So I would definitely get Wilson just so that you have another sturdy quarterback, and you're probably most likely, honestly, going to be starting Wilson more than Minshew. Just looking at the next few weeks' schedule, Minshew this week has New England, which could be decent. Then you got to buy. So obviously you're going to need a quarterback, and if Stafford's not completely ready to go, you need it. So I would grab Wilson just to make sure you're covering bye weeks. And quite honestly, when you look at what Wilson has coming up, Buffalo, then Minnesota. So week 9, obviously we're off. Then he had Buffalo, Minnesota, Cleveland. So it's got some tough matchups. So I'd be careful there. But between those two, you can play matchups over the next few weeks and then see what happens with Stafford. Hopefully that helps. All right. Jose, thanks. Thank you. I appreciate y'all hanging out. I know this is a little different than what you usually get here. Normally got 2-3 guys going, but I didn't want to leave us, our awesome friends and fans in the community hanging because you guys got questions, so we got answers. All right. Football de Noche. Welcome back, my friend. It's good to see you. Should I pick up Jackson Smith? I got Pook on by. Yeah, Smith's been really solid. Like, I was really surprised with DK and with Lockett and with, Noah Fan at tight end. I really wasn't expecting a whole lot out of the rookie season for Smith and Jigba, and he's been targeted. I mean, over the last since week 6, 5 targets, 7 targets, 4 targets, 7 targets, has 2 touchdowns in there. Hasn't really gotten a huge yardage game. 60, 70 yards is kind of what you can expect. So football, depending on what it is that your starting lineup looks like, he's going against the Washington defense that obviously the line is not as strong. They just got done trading all their edge rushers. So Geno should have a little bit more time to pass. So you could see, I would not be surprised if Smith sees 7 to 10 targets this week. Probably going to get you 40 to 70 yards, and there is potential for a touchdown. So I would definitely be okay picking up Jackson. And depending on what your lineup looks like, you probably can put him in and flex him this week, especially against Washington. All right, Deontay Johnson or Mike Evans in the flex. So Deontay is a PPR monster. So if this is a full PPR, I'm probably going to lean Deontay just because it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. Since he's gotten back from injury, 6 targets, 14 targets, 9 targets, caught 5, 8, and 7, even got you a touchdown this week. I mean, Deontay is he's just another level. I mean, he just does such a good job in PPR leagues. And as good as Mike Evans is, the consistency is just not the same because Baker, right? So he had 10 targets against Detroit in week 6, but then since he's at 8, 6, and 3, and then he's got a Tennessee defense, which can give up some passing yards, but Tampa Bay, since that Detroit game, has just looked different. It's just not been the same Tampa Bay team. And I know I got a bunch of line stuff behind me. I'm not biased here. I'm just being honest about it. They've just looked different in the last few weeks. So this week against Tennessee, and then Deontay's got Green Bay. I feel much better against receivers going against Green Bay than I do against receivers going against Tennessee. So I would lean Deontay there. Now, obviously, as we get further into the week, pay attention to practices, make sure everybody's healthy, see how the quarterback situations are playing out as well. We've seen Kenny Pickett obviously dinged up, but even dinged up, he still got you, a significant amount of fantasy points for Deontay. I'm leaning Deontay. Worst case, if you're concerned about it, come back Saturday night. Ask the guys. The guys are always here Saturday night, Sunday morning, and we can make sure then. That's what I'm saying on Tuesday night leading into this week. Chandler, welcome, my friend. Let's see what we got here. Start Burrow versus the Texans, who I think could be a shootout, or Fields versus the Panthers, who are the worst team in the league and could run all over them. Burrow feels safe. Fields could blow up. Yes, he could. Let me check to make sure. I don't know that he's been practicing because he's been limited, right? All right, so limited. Yep, so limited with right thumb still. Log practice on Monday and Tuesday ahead of Thursday night. Those Thursday night games always feel like a trap when it comes to it. I would start Burrow just because Burrow recently has been looking more like what we expected out of him. Burrow over the last few weeks has definitely seen a significant uptick, really since week 5 against Arizona. We've really started to see the Burrow that we remember. Obviously, the Seattle game was a tough one, but since the bye week, he's been really lights out. So I would definitely be starting Burrow against the Texans. Hopefully it's a shootout for both, right? Our CJ Stroud shares have been skyrocketing here lately, and Burrow is continuing. The Jamar Chase situation could be where the struggle is, because I know Jamar's was dinged up, so keep an eye on that. But I still feel good starting Burrow because T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Irv Smith's been coming on, so I'm perfectly fine with Joe Burrow. He is, you start your studs every week, and though we really like Fields going into the season, this whole Chicago thing's been crazy this year. Start your studs, lean on Burrow, and I'm sure you'll do just fine in that position. All right, Jose, should I drop the Philly for Detroit Lions defense rest of season? Man, I'm going to put my homerism aside because obviously you can see all the Detroit Lions paraphernalia behind me. I would stick with Philly. Detroit's defense is still young, still developing. Aiden Hutchinson's been kind of on a sack struggling situation here the last few weeks. They're still able to get some turnovers and do some things, but when you look at what Philly has coming up, and let's just take a look at the schedules just to give you an idea, because now we're getting close to playoff time, so we got to be careful there. So they have a bye in week 10. Then they got KC, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas. Yeah, those are tough matchups. Those are not great matchups for defense. Let's see what Detroit's got. Detroit probably has an easier schedule, and I'm probably going to say, yeah, do it. All right. They had a bye in week 9. Chargers, Bears, Packers, Saints. Okay. Yeah, I would probably do it. Rest of the season, Detroit probably gives you. But see, the issue is Philadelphia is the safe defense to play. Detroit's kind of the boom bust defense to play. So, they have games where, if you look at the Baltimore game, Baltimore shredded them and really gave you no fantasy points. But then you have games like, Atlanta, even Las Vegas, Green Bay, where you're getting double-digit fantasy points from your defense. So Detroit's more of a boom bust with a softer schedule. Philly is safer with a tougher schedule. So I would personally lean Detroit, and I know I have them in a couple leagues where I still run defense. So good luck with that, Jose. Hopefully that helps you out. Rashad White. Oh, I see you. All right, let's see what we got. Rashad White, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, and my running backs. Should I try to trade Walker doubt I start him again until he has more than. Yeah. I mean, so the issue you run into here, I see, is what are you trying to upgrade and how can you do it? So right now, because of what's going on, I don't know that you're going to be able to just trade Kenneth Walker straight up for a piece that's of the same type of value. Obviously, yes, Jacobs is probably RB1 for you right now. And then, I mean, Walker could wind up becoming RB2 again for you over Rachaad White, because you don't know exactly what's going on with that Tampa team week to week. Rachaad White's been safer, but Kenneth Walker's the better running back. So that's a struggle I have there. So if I'm trading Kenneth Walker, I want an upgrade at a position, whether it's you need wide receiver help, you need tight end help, whatever the case may be. I don't know if you can get that done. If you can get that done, sure. What's the rest of your team look like, though, honestly? So what are your starting, what's your starting lineup look like? I see that might help me make a better decision for you, but I wouldn't be jumping in a trade unless you can upgrade something. And then you're still then having to backfill your running back position because you need depth if you don't have it. So be careful there. Don't sell Kenneth Walker short, because Kenneth Walker is the better running back of really all three of those. Just Josh Jacobs is a better producer and Rachaad White safer at this point. Hopefully that helps. All right. Next up, we got Patrick, my man. Full PPR, one flex. DK, Ridley, James Cook, James Conner. Thank you. Always glad to help. So do we know? Let me check on James Conner. I didn't know if he was. Let's see here what we got. Open. Okay, so they're hoping to open his practice window, but James Conner is definitely out because his practice window isn't open yet. They're just hoping to open that 21-day window. Let's see what else we're looking at here. I mean, typically you start the stud, and the stud is DK Metcalf. Let me just verify. So Seattle this week has Washington in week 10. Yeah, man. I mean, it's hard not to want to start DK against Washington. They're going to be able to protect Geno long enough for him to make throws and kind of pick them apart. And you saw it against even Detroit earlier in the year when you couldn't pass rush effectively and you gave Geno time to pick apart your defense. He did it. So I would start DK. He is your stud. James Cook's probably the safest play on your team, though. So if you're looking for safe, I don't love Cook versus Denver is a fairly safe play. Let's check out Ridley just to make sure and be safe. All right, let's see here. San Francisco. Yeah, I'm probably not starting Ridley. I'm not feeling good starting Ridley. So I'm starting DK if you want the ceiling play as your stud. If you need safe, go James Cook. Hopefully that helps. Oh, and you got a question. Another one. All right, Patrick. Also picking up Koo because Butker's on bye. Who do I drop? Douglas, Watson, Charbonnet, Logan Thomas, Head McBride. Probably Douglas. Think about the Patriots, the way that team is right now. I mean, they're struggling, but Hunter Henry's their wide receiver one. I mean, he's probably their most trusted target. Douglas could be boomer bust, but Watson, they want to be wide receiver one in Green Bay. And then Charbonnet's a really strong backup who's getting some play. So I would not touch Logan Thomas because Logan Thomas is very startable. Douglas for Koo would be who I would drop. And then after bye weeks are over, drop Koo, pick up Douglas or whatever the best option is out there and go from there. Great question, Patrick. And if you have concerns, and again, anyone who just joined, Saturday night, Sunday morning, we do this all over again. Normally more than just me. Tuesday nights, normally there's more than just me as well. But this week we had some situations pop up and I decided let's just do this. Let's hang out together for a little while and chop it up. Lex plant some trees. It's good to see you back. I remember seeing you last week or the week before. Drop Charbonnet for Khalil Herbert. Need to start this week. I don't know that I trust Khalil Herbert this week, just coming off injury. I don't even know. Let's check a look at the practice. Logs consecutive practices ahead of Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football, man, against Carolina too. Gosh, it's such a juicy matchup for whatever running back they lean on. Charbonnet is going to be facing Denver, right? No, they've got Washington. Man, Charbonnet against Washington. He's RB2. Probably not going to get more than, I mean, I probably would, but definitely keep an eye on Charbonnet because who knows what Seattle's been doing there lately. Kenneth Walker's not getting the same amount of action that he should. Charbonnet's been seeing a little bit of an increase. He's getting, right around 50 to 60% of the snap share right now. So Charbonnet could start booming as you get closer to playoff time. But they have tough matchups. So I would definitely lean Chicago because Khalil Herbert, we know they'll get him involved as long as he's helpful, as long as he's healthy, which it appears consecutive practices in a row logged. So I'd grab Herbert, definitely make sure he's rostered. All right. Football. Let's see what we got here. Thank you for all the help, man. I'm always glad to help. I love helping people, man. That's what I do. I'm in first place, 8-1. My man, look at you. This is my first time playing fantasy and my first time seeing football. What? This all right. So this one, I got to screenshot this one because I love this stuff. I'm gonna share this with the team because our guys love to see these types of things. And I'm glad it's been working for you. We love helping people with fantasy football. I mean, we've been doing RotoHeat's been around for 7 years now, and we're all about helping people out and making fantasy fun, right? Like part of fantasy football is obviously winning, but part of it is helping you be successful. And that's what we're here to do. So football, I'm glad it's working out for you. I've got one team that's 8-0 right now, and the rest of them are kind of 5-4, 4-5. I've got a few that are 6-and. So I'm with you on that. 8 wins is fun to see, and that you're pretty much ready for the playoffs at that point. Jose. Okay, so make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification icon. We go live Tuesday nights, Saturday nights, and Sunday mornings up until game time. So obviously with the Frankfurt games and the other international games, we kind of move that schedule around. But as long as games start at 1:00 on Sundays, you'll see us typically from about 9:00 till about noon 30, depending on when people come in and out. We try to be live for as long as we can. Saturday night, Rick and I and the team have gone live until 12:30, 1:00 in the morning Eastern time. So, Saturday night we start at 9:30, the same as Tuesday nights, and then Sunday mornings we start about 9:00. So hopefully that helps. But the way you stay up to date for sure is just hit that notification icon, and YouTube will bombard your cellular device with notifications that we're live. Enzo boxed you. Well, I don't want to be boxed. I prefer to be left free like I am. But thank you for asking the question. 32-person league, Parham or Everett? I mean, Parham is the ceiling play. Everett tends to be the safer play, but he's been dinged up. So I would probably lean Parham, but then at the same time, know that he could also hurt you. So let's take a look at the guys real quick. Let's compare them. Make sure we not Dylan. We want the other Parham. All right, so Parham. Let's look at Donald Parham. So last week, for instance, he got you 0. Got 2 targets, didn't catch any of them. 55% of the snaps. Before that, 62%, 40, 23%. I mean, his snap share is not strong. Everett is the safer play, but he also might not get you any points either. So that's the struggle here. So when you look at the schedule the rest of the year, Detroit, Green Bay, Baltimore, New England, Denver, Las Vegas. Man, let me change that. I'm going Gerald Everett. He's the safer play here. And in a 32-person league, you need to make sure you're getting something. There was 1 week where Everett got you nothing, didn't play, right? But otherwise, he's at least gotten you something. Parham, because he's had plenty of weeks where he's gotten 0 and he's seeing 50% less of the snaps each week, I would not be super comfortable with Parham. But Parham is a solid red zone threat when they do target him. So, be mindful that you might have to make the switch, but Everett's safer. So I would go Everett right now. Sorry about that. I had to think that one through. You guys are my best friend right now. We get to process this together. So we get to think about these things together. So hopefully that helped. Patrick, rest of season defense. Rank defense rest of season. Cowboys, Saints, Ravens, Jets. Man, I want the Jets defense to be the top one on here, but it's probably the Ravens. But let me verify. All right, Ravens. All right, they have Cleveland this week, Cincinnati, Chargers, bye week, Rams, Jacksonville, San Francisco, Miami. I mean, they don't have a very soft schedule. That's a pretty strong schedule they face there. But they're really good at getting turnovers, and that's what we want in fantasy. I'm not putting Dallas up there, but let's see here. They got the Giants, Carolina, Washington, Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, Miami. So playoff time, Dallas' schedule is tough. But leading up to playoffs, Dallas' schedule is not tough. Let's look at the Saints. Saints are always kind of an under-the-radar defense that has any given week boom potential. Minnesota bye week, Atlanta, Detroit, Carolina, Giants, Rams, Tampa Bay. I mean, it almost feels like the Saints with that schedule have to be one rest of season. Jets, Vegas, Buffalo, Miami, Atlanta, Houston, Miami, Washington, Cleveland. That's not terrible. All right. So give me Saints, give me Ravens, give me Jets, give me Cowboys. That's my rest of season rankings, Patrick. Hopefully that helps, my friend. All right. Kate Otten or Jonnu Smith to replace Goddard this week. All right, let's take a look at so I have just started looking at my lineups for the week. So let me pull these guys up just to be safe, because I actually have Jonnu and Otten on in many leagues. Jonnu was a great free agent pickup if you picked him up, because he's somehow producing very well. All right, so Jonnu has Arizona. How can you hate that matchup? And Kate Otten has Tennessee. I will go Jonnu this week against Arizona. Even if he gets, 5 or 6 targets, he's probably going to catch them because Heineke's giving him quality targets. So give me Jonnu Smith for the win against Arizona. Devontae for Marquise Brown and Javonte Williams. All right. So the struggle here is, do you need running back help? And can you stand to lose a guy you probably drafted in the first round, or a guy that should produce well moving forward? So Devontae Adams with, the struggle here is that Devontae's had a couple of down weeks, probably more so because of the quarterback than anything, right? Marquise has had very similar up and down weeks, but he's getting Kyler back. So I would probably want more for Devontae, but I wouldn't hate it if you're in a redraft league where this league is just 1 year and then you redrafted next year, because you're getting a running back who you can play, who's solid, as well as a wide receiver who's probably going to get you similar production to Devontae Adams right now. I mean, right now they're really similar in terms of targets each week. So let's go back to week 5. So Devontae's got 4 targets, 5 targets, 12. Then he had 7. So right now you're feeling comfortable thinking he probably gets you 6 to 8 targets a week. Marquise Brown, since week 5, 10, 11, 7, 9, 8. Probably feel more comfortable that he's going to get you 8+ targets a week. So, are they good targets with Kyler coming back? They should be better targets than what they have been. So you would think there should be a bump for Marquise Brown. Devontae Adams is going to be a lot of similar stuff. Sometimes balls are going to get sailed over him. Sometimes he's going to get short stuff. This week he had 4 for 34, no touchdowns. So that really hurt you. So I would probably lean the package if you need running back help and you can stand to lose potential value there, because Devontae, when he's on his game and quarterbacks are getting the ball, he's just hard to beat. Hope that helps, Oaks. All right, I see my friend is back again. What do we got? QB Josh Allen, wide receivers Kupp, Hill, Diggs, Evan Ingram, got Deontay Johnson, Mike Evans, Adam Thielen, Jalen Warren, Eagles defense, Saints defense. Okay, so this has to do with your question from a little bit earlier, so let me go back and see it. Rashad White, Josh Jacobs. Okay. Well, so you don't need an upgrade at receiver because you've got elite PPR receiver in Deontay, elite Mike Evans, been elite this year for some odd reason. People thought he was going to fall off, but he's just been such a good route runner. And then Jalen Warren would be your depth if you got rid of. So it really, what are you moving Kenneth Walker to go get? And the struggle here is I don't know that you can't upgrade your wide receiver. Evan Ingram is a tight end 1, so you can't really upgrade that. I just don't, at this point, I don't know why you would do it, and that's the struggle for me, is unless there's a clear, like, this is what I'm going to go get and this is how it's going to help me win a championship, I would rather hold the talent in Kenneth Walker because he is the better player in the situation, right? Like he's arguably your best running back, even though he hasn't been producing as well as Josh Jacobs or even Rashad White. So I see if you've got an owner that wants him, that's willing to pay fair market value for him, okay, but you're needing to replace, Jalen Warren is depth, but it's going to be hard to trust him week in and week out because Najee's still getting involved heavily. It's not like one guy's overtaking the backfield. They're both used pretty heavily. Charbonnet hasn't been used a ton. It's just Kenneth Walker has been used in really weird ways as well, and this offense has been struggling. So if you can get a good deal where you're upgrading something, which you don't need to upgrade, I don't know why you do it. So that would be my concern is it's always better to have some depth in case of injury if you need it, unless you've got somebody who's going to give you a running back and something that can help upgrade another position. So maybe tight end 2, or a guy that could help you in the stretch just in case Ingram gets dinged up. I just don't see where are you going to get better. Patrick, appreciate the help. Drop a like. I appreciate you, Patrick. I appreciate you a lot, my friend. All right, Sheila, welcome back. Rate the lineup. Minshew, Kamara, Stevenson, McLaurin, Pittman, Andrews, Eckler, Deontay Johnson, Falcons defense. You got Stafford, Roshan Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Nakua, Rashee Rice, Ferguson, Kincaid, Chiefs defense. Should I trade someone for a QB? Thank you. Well, thank you for stopping by. All right, so let's see here. I mean, you definitely want to do something at QB. In a 1 QB situation, quite honestly, I'm dropping Quentin Johnston just because I just don't trust him as a rookie. I mean, obviously, if you ask other guys on this team, they don't like him at all. I at least like him. I just don't know that he's a guy that you can really trust at this point, especially as we're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. I know Josh Palmer went on IR. Jalen Guyton came back, and Jalen Guyton is a guy that is underrated. This offense has known how to use him in the past and has gotten him involved. Johnson's still young, still struggling to develop and learn, and it's going to take him time. So in a 1 QB situation, I'm probably dropping Johnston for Wilson, or maybe if you're lucky, maybe somebody needs some wide receiver help, and you could do Stafford and Johnston for an upgraded quarterback, right? Like that would be kind of where my head's at. Like, can you move Johnston and Stafford, and maybe even Roshan? Like maybe you're at a point where like this owner wants to get the deal done, but needs a running back. Can you put Roshan in the deal? Sure. I'm not moving any of your starting lineup because outside of Stevenson, I mean, unless somebody's going to give you a really good upgrade at a position. But otherwise, your starting lineup is, I mean, you should be one of the top teams in your league with that starting lineup, especially now that Eckler and Deontay are back in full health. I mean, weekly, it's going to be tough to beat you. Now, the defensive situation, I mean, I typically pay matchups week to week, and there's always a defense I can rotate in that will point just as well as whatever I've got. So I would, in your case, I would probably drop one of those 2 defenses, whichever one you don't like more, because right now, any given week, either of those defenses could pop off, and maybe even add another player if there's somebody out on waivers that you need. Or, truth be told, drop one of those defenses, pick up Wilson, and then you just kind of ride it out with a strong starting lineup and really solid depth. Ferguson's been great. Kincaid's been great. Puka's been great. Flowers have been great. I mean, you're in a spot where you really should be strong for your playoff run, as well as you've got depth just in case of injury. So that's huge. I think you're in a really good spot. And I commend you for making good decisions as an owner, because sometimes that does not always happen, but you nailed it. All right. Eternal 305. Welcome, my friend. I need to drop one of these quarterbacks, Justin Fields or Kyler Murray. Who has the better outlook? Oh, that's such a tough question because both of them are coming back from injury. I'm probably leaning. All right, so let's look at Justin Fields' schedule. Detroit. Well, he might play against Carolina. He's had a couple of limited practices, but Carolina, Detroit, Minnesota bye week. Detroit, Cleveland, Arizona, Atlanta. I mean, he's got some really tough games there right around, sandwiched kind of around his bye week. So let's see what we got here. Kyler has Atlanta, Houston, the Rams, Pittsburgh. He's got San Francisco. Well, 14's bye week, San Francisco in week 15. That's prime playoff time facing the arguably best defense in the league. But if you get past them, then you get Chicago, Philadelphia. I'd probably lean Justin Fields. He has tough matchups, but they're not nearly as tough as Kyler Murray's matchups. And Kyler Murray's team is in transition, right? The offensive line is not insanely strong. I would probably lean Justin Fields just because we've seen him this year produce well at times. We've also seen some really tough times for him. So we haven't seen anything out of Kyler. And with that offensive line being what it is, James Conner still being hurt, it's kind of one of those things where I would go with what I've seen so far in Fields versus what I don't know is going to happen with Kyler. And hopefully that helps. Both of them have rushing upside. Fields is bigger, should be able to take more of a beating. Kyler's been dinged up, continues to get hurt. That's a concern for me. Good luck. And thank you for the question. All right. Daniel Caps Keenan, my friend, welcome back. It's good to see you again. Can you believe Sunday I got 0 touchdowns for my whole team? Oh my gosh. How on earth did you not get a touchdown from your team? Yes, I asked you for help, but it's not. I mean, so 2 weeks ago, and I have a bunch of leagues I'm in, right? But 2 weeks ago, I just lost almost every league. Somehow I picked all the players that did not score well, but my benches just blew up. So I feel for you. This last week, I won all but I think 2 of my leagues. So any given Sunday, I am so sorry that you did not get a single touchdown from your team. Man, that hurts. I hate when that happens. And I'm the guy that made the mistake of not playing Cole Kmet this week in a bunch of leagues when I had him. I feel your pain because when you make when you make a decision that appears right, you trust your process. I mean, how many times we say trust the process? Sometimes the process still bites you, and that's such a tough one. And if I remember correctly, we've talked through your roster plenty of times. I'm sure your roster's strong enough that one crappy week ain't going to define your season. So I believe that you will pick it back up, and it'll be better this week, my friend. All right. Ronald, welcome back, sir. All right. Pick up Ferguson or McBride for start this week. Need the upside. I'm leaning Ferguson because Ferguson's been solid almost all year, if I remember correctly. So let's see. Week 1, it was tough. He still got 7 targets, but it was just not great. He's had some up and downs, but the last 2 weeks have been really strong. So he's facing a Giants defense that typically is kind of middle of the road against tight end. So it could go either way for him. He has the only other time he faced the Giants was week 1, and that week he got 7 targets. He just didn't catch many of them. Trey McBride is getting a Kyler Murray who is coming back from injury, going against an Atlanta defense. So let's see here. Let's take a look at. We're gonna put a pin in this for 2 seconds so I can pull up some more information because I feel like that's a question that we need to dig a little bit more into. I don't want to just say it for sure until let me look at our tight ends here real quick. And also, if you want to check RotoHeat.com, I know Rick and a bunch of the guys do weekly rankings so that you guys can see which matchups they think are the best, things like that. Right now, Ferguson is a tight end 1 on the season. He is playing a defense that is ranked number 2 against opposing tight ends. Oof, that is a tough matchup. Okay, now the Arizona is facing a Falcons that's 21. Ah, man. If you're looking for the upside, I guess it's Trey McBride this week because Atlanta's back half of the league when it comes to points for tight ends. And Trey McBride's did well last week or 2 weeks ago. Obviously, the Browns are number 1 against tight ends, so that's a tough one. So you know what? Let's go Trey McBride for the upside on this week. Ferguson felt safer, but Trey McBride is the ceiling play here. So go start Trey McBride and get that win for us, Ronald. First time in 23 years, my team scored 0. Well, I mean, think about it, Daniel. All the injuries this year. I mean, like so many. And injuries happen every year, but this year it feels aggressive and it's across important positions, quarterback, running back. I mean, tight ends. Zach Ertz was a guy I was leaning on and just got hurt, and that was brutal. We've seen up and down injuries all year. It's nuts. So I'm with you 100%, Daniel. This year has been crazy. We need to get rid of the turf monster. That's for sure. Plus my kicker. Okay, I think oh man. Oh yeah. Well, maybe Dare Agunbowale will be available and he'll be kicking some more. All right. Andrew McGrady, welcome, my friend. No Goddard for a few weeks, and waivers are dry. Well, you know what? Sutton should be able to get you a solid tight end. He's been good this year. I'm actually in trade talks of trading a Sutton share in a league, and the guy's talking strong running back to get him. So let's see here. What do we got? Okay, so maybe you target the guy who's got, Dalton Schultz from Houston. Dalton Schultz is still a tight end 1 right now. He has had up and down weeks, but he has a fairly soft schedule. Bengals this week are ranked 30th against tight ends. Then we got the Cardinals, top 10 against tight ends. But if CJ Stroud keeps slinging it and keeps targeting Schultz, that could be he could overcome that. Jaguars 24th against, Broncos 29th against, Jets 17 against. So Dalton Schultz would be a target I would definitely go after if you can. Let's see what else we got. Logan Thomas from Washington. I know he's one of those. It's up and down. So maybe you trade him for Logan Thomas and a piece. But he's got some decent matchups. I know he's got the Giants, who's tough against opposing tight ends in 2 weeks from now. But he's got Seattle this week, who's right in the middle of the league. Then after that, Giants, which are tougher. Cowboys right in the middle of the league. Dolphins, lower half of the league against tight ends. Bye week, then you got Rams, who are 25th, and Jets, who are 17th. So Thomas could have some softer matchups, and they're going to need to throw it, right? They got rid of their edge rushers. Their defense is not going to be super strong, so they're going to need to throw it to stay in the game. I would also target Hunter Henry, Cade Otton. Those guys are tight end 2s, but have tight end 1 upside. Hunter Henry, because he's now, New England's wide receiver 1 with Kendrick Bourne going out. Those would probably be the ones I would target the most. If we knew Deshaun Watson was going to be healthy the rest of the year, David Njoku would be a nice target because David Njoku and him have a good rapport. So those would be my top ones, Andrew. And I would probably still, outside of the guys who are currently tight end 1s, I would ask for a little bit back if I traded Sutton for him. But don't be afraid. If you've got the wide receiver depth, why not? Why not trade a piece like Sutton, who is fine, but if he's not your wide receiver 2 or 3, or maybe is your kind of wide receiver 3, 4, I'd be okay with it. Trade it for a tight end and maybe some wide receiver depth to backfill. Hopefully that helps, my friend. B. Ruckus. I love that icon. Sweet. Sup, brother? I just traded Jalen Hurts for Jamar Chase. Wow. I have Kyler to replace. How are we feeling about starting Kyler? I mean, Kyler's one of those guys that I have no doubt he's going to be running around, going to be doing some things with his legs and get you a little bit of extra juice there. So you traded Hurts and you believe in Kyler, so you got to put him in your lineup. This week, it's not a terrible matchup to come back to, right? Like Arizona's got a team. What is he facing? He's facing Atlanta, who, isn't amazing against opposing quarterbacks. There's plenty of room for him to be able to do something there. And they're a team that's kind of in flux. They moved on to Taylor Heineke. They don't know how to play Bijan properly. They're kind of been all over the place. Their defense is good, but not great. It's improving, but there's certainly room for Kyler Murray to make some noise there. So, I put him in your lineup and see what happens. I mean, that's, worst case scenario, you get, QB2 value out of him this week because it's his first week back and they don't have him throw as much and maybe they don't have him run as much and they try to lean on the running back so that he can get his feet back under him. I mean, that's always a tough thing when a guy's come back from injury. Even if it's a guy like a James Conner who played a bunch early and was really strong, then got hurt and's been out for a month or so. I mean, you still have a little bit of time to get your feet back under you, even if this is a game these guys have been playing since they were kids. They still takes time to kind of knock the rust off a little bit. So don't expect him to give you, Jalen Hurts production, but certainly don't think he's going to get you to 0. I mean, I think he still gives you solid kind of high-end QB2 upside this week with QB1 potential because the way he runs, he could get you some rushing touchdowns like crazy. Good luck this week, B. Ruckus. All right, so Woody the Badger. I like it. All right, start 2. Mark Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Addison, full PPR. For me, it's Cooper because of the PPR. And, that's a tough one. It should be Addison. Yeah. I mean, Ridley's got a tougher matchup this week than Addison does. No, man, the Saints are so underrated, though. Amari for sure. Give me Amari and give me Calvin Ridley. As much as I want to start Addison, that New Orleans defense is the secondary is really good. And that secondary could really cause some trouble for Addison this week. I would go Amari. I would go Ridley. But quite honestly, if you told me Ridley didn't go off, but Addison did, it wouldn't surprise me. So it really could go either way there. This is probably a really good question to come back Saturday night just to get some other opinions and chat. I know that y'all are talking to me and I'm talking back, but feel free to talk amongst yourselves, right? If you guys think I'm crazy and you would start Addison over Ridley, say in the chat. Don't be afraid to say, yeah, I like Addison better. I think Addison's in a tougher spot because Josh Dobbs is now a full week into this offense, and though he had some heroics, and we still got 5 for 52 last week from him, he was also facing Atlanta, who his defense is softer, right? It's just not as good as New Orleans defense. So give me Ridley and Amari for the win. Sheila, thanks for answering my questions and all your advice. Pleasure is all mine. You know, I do this to help y'all out, and I do this because I love interacting with people. So I appreciate you guys for coming on here and hanging out with me. I know probably not nearly as exciting just talking to one person as opposed to talking to a team, but we still have fun together, right? I hope. Thank you for the detailed answer. So if you ask anybody who knows me, I am an external processor. So you are going to get very detailed answers because I'm going to think through it to make sure I'm giving you the best answer that I feel. So you're always welcome, my friend. Always welcome. All right. So AJ Brody or Broyd. I don't know that. I hope I said it correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. Mostert or Achane for B. Mostert and Achane for Bijan. I completely butchered Bijan. Mostert and Achane for Bijan. Oh man, if they were using Bijan the way he was supposed to be used, I would say sure, but I almost want Miami's backfield more. So give me Mostert and Achane because we know that Achane and Mostert can give you just as good a production as Bijan easily. And looking at what Bijan has this week against Arizona, it's a good matchup, right? He should produce well. After that, he's got a bye week. Then he gets the Saints. Not an easy matchup. And they have not faced the Saints yet this year. They have the Faints. No, right? Yeah, they haven't faced them yet. And that means they'll face them twice over the next month and a half. That's a tough matchup. Then you got the Jets. Not an easy matchup. Tampa Bay, not an easy matchup. Carolina, very easy matchup. Indy, medium matchup. Chicago, and then New Orleans again. So I would go with Miami's backfield all day long because although there'll be times where they struggle a little bit, they're not struggling very often. And Achane, when he's healthy, I mean, I can't assume he's going to give you 40, 50 points every week, but he was electric. Make COD great again. My friend, I play Call of Duty, and it is exhausting with how I wish they would make it great again. I just don't know that that's possible. 7-2 PPR. I'm dominant at and always flex RB. Wide receivers, Lamb, Waddle, Pittman, Higgins, Kirk, and Flowers. Can I feel okay dropping Flowers for Keaton Mitchell or just to get ahead of playoff schedule? So Keaton Mitchell got all of his action as garbage time. I mean, he still really is RB3 behind Gus and Justice Hill. And that's the thing that's concerning for me. So are they going to continue to give Mitchell more run, which they should? I mean, he looked really good in those garbage time opportunities, but that's my concern. So you are really strong there, right? Like you are strong at wide receiver. I don't know that I feel comfortable dropping Flowers, who we're sure is one of their top passing targets, for a running back who hopefully gets more work. But I understand how this is. You're going to have to get him this week because somebody's going to get him. Like it just is what it is. So if you're really, you're 7-2. So my concern here is that if they don't do anything with Keaton the rest of the year, right? Like Gus continues to be kind of their big bruising back that they use all the time. Justice Hill gets sprinkled in. Keaton Mitchell gets a couple here and there. Like then it's a waste of dropping Flowers. And that's my concern. I don't have a kicker, so I don't have to drop someone. Oh, that makes me feel that much better. All right. So don't drop anybody. Pick up Keaton Mitchell because you can, and don't worry about it. Oh, so you won without playing a kicker at all? I want to be in that league. You are the man. That is awesome. And, and depending on how kickers are scored, maybe you don't need a kicker. I mean, maybe you can win without him. I don't see that happening long term, but if anybody could do it, a guy who's 7-2 right now, why not, right? But yeah, so if you really were desperate and you needed to, I mean, I don't want to drop Zay Flowers because I don't think the one target last week against Seattle is the norm. You know, we saw 10, 5, 10, 4, 11, 8, 6, 7 this year. So we've yet to see a one target game except last week. I don't think that's the norm. Whereas Keaton Mitchell, that last week was his first week. So, all right, Kenny Stay Trill, welcome. This question, start 2 full PPR, Bijan, JT, Mixon. This is a good problem to have. I think it's got to be JT and Mixon right now because Bijan is so up and down. Like Atlanta, Arthur Smith hates fantasy football. That's all we can say about that, right? So Bijan over the last 3 weeks, obviously the Tampa Bay situation was illness, but then 74% snaps, only had 11 carries, got you touchdowns. That saved your week. Last week, 61% of the snaps, 11 carries, 51 yards, got you a couple catches. That did not save your week, right? Like that just wasn't huge. I'm going safe. Give me JT, give me Mixon. Do it. And then Bijan's your depth. So, Drop My Donk says, for my flex, I have Calvin Ridley, Jahan Dotson. I also have Taysom Hill and Laporta. You think I can put Taysom or Laporta in flex? And who should I start at tight end? Yeah, Laporta's. I mean, I typically reserve the to the notion that tight ends took a few years to develop, but they're using Laporta as a tight end, as a wide receiver, as a receiving tight end. So, he's had 10 targets, 7 targets, 11 targets, 4, 5, 11. I mean, outside of Green Bay and Carolina, where they didn't need to use them as much, they didn't. But Chargers, they're going to need to use them. That they're going to need to be passing the ball because that is a high-powered offense they're facing. Chicago, we already saw them face Chicago. No, they haven't faced Chicago yet this year. So Chicago is solid against tight ends. Is a solid play for opposing tight ends. Sorry. Taysom Hill, I mean, you got to start Taysom Hill just because they use him in so many different ways, right? Like, I mean, he's gotten you targets, he's gotten you carries, I mean, he's getting you touchdowns randomly. I mean, he'll, the first half of the season, I mean, it was oof central. Like you weren't putting him in your lineup. But as of the last month, I mean, he's startable. Calvin Ridley's going against San Francisco. That's a tough one. Jahan Dotson, any given week, he could give you good production or he could give you 0, right? Like we've seen 0, we've seen 5, we've seen 6, we've seen 4, and then we've seen weeks where, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, really, last 3 weeks, he's had 26 combined targets over the last 3 weeks. So I would feel good about Jahan Dotson this week going against Seattle. That'll be a tough matchup for Washington, but, they're going to need to throw the ball to stay in the game. And then I would probably play Taysom is going against Minnesota. I'm probably putting Hill in my lineup as well, right? Like Dotson and Hill feel like the safest and the ceiling play. So Hill is kind of the ceiling play. If you want to go safe, go Ridley and Laporta or Jahan and Laporta, But for me personally, if you ask me to set your lineup, I'm doing Dotson and Taysom and hoping that Taysom doesn't give me early season points because then I'll feel dumb for not playing Laporta. Which is a roundabout way of saying you're in a good spot because those are all very good football players. Dylan asks, Dylan Blum Donato, welcome, sir. I'm glad you're here. Would you trade Tyler Lockett for Tank Dell if you need it, if you have solid wide receiver depth? I don't hate it, but Lockett is such an underrated fantasy football player. Like, I mean, he just gets targeted, right? Like, with Tyler Lockett, you're getting probably 6+ targets a week. Tank Dell, you could for sure, but that isn't for sure. So I would stay with Tyler Lockett. I wouldn't be in a hurry to trade for him. Okay, so yeah, I have to grab one. I figured you had to grab a kicker. I mean, you got lucky on a week, but I would not trust that week in and week out. So I get it. All right, yeah, bro, this work league is easy, but it makes me That, you know what, that's the fantasy football, right? Like, we overthink our roster decisions, our lineups, our waiver wire moves. Like, even this week, I was talking earlier in the thing where I spent a bunch of my free agent, my waiver money on Tommy DeVito just to make sure other people didn't get it. Like, that's fantasy football. Overthink everything and hope for the best. I just don't think I'll ever get to play him since I absolutely agree. You may not play him. On the other side of it, are you dropping him for somebody who needs wide receiver help or needs, that positional help that could get them into the play? I mean, so you have to think about it that way. Are you keeping him off a roster that needs him? Are you filling a need for yourself? So that's kind of the thing you have to think about there. I don't hate the move either way. So whichever you do, you still are pushing for playoffs. I mean, that's just how it works. Your team is very good and you will continue to do very well. Chase Cookman, welcome, my friend. 5-4, third place in a 10-team half-point PPR. Hurts, Tyreek, CD, Pacheco, James Cook, Puka, Dotson. Do I trade Tyreek for Bijan, Jerome Ford, Waddle, or Eckler, Ford? Oh, no. Bijan, I mean, just like I talked about a minute ago, Bijan, they just don't seem to be doing the right things with him, and I don't want to put the hope on that because Tyreek is a beast. I mean, he's just elite, and he wins. He just wins for you. I just don't think of it's enough of an upgrade because Pacheco and Cook are going to do just fine for you. They're, RB2s with some RB1 potential weeks the rest of the season. I think you just ride it out and hope for the best because Kareem Hunt's going to keep getting used. So Ford is a depth guy. I mean, it's kind of one of those week in and week out. Waddle, the same. I would rather Tyreek over Waddle in that situation. So I don't think it's enough of an upgrade just because Pacheco and Cook are getting just better used in their offenses as opposed to what Bijan is. So sorry, Chase. I'm not opposed. I will say trade a guy if you can improve, but I just don't think that improves you enough. So I would stand pat. Hunter 18, welcome, my friend. Taysom Hill or Sam Laporta? You were just watching, weren't you? You wanted to put me through the ringer again. So Laporta is the safer play. Taysom Hill is the ceiling play. So depending on how your roster and your lineup is built, I wouldn't be opposed to starting Taysom Hill if you're looking for big points, but Laporta is the safer play in this situation. So depending on what else you got, if you need a ceiling play Taysom Hill. Otherwise, Laporta is a tight end one every week. Just in that conversation. Chase Cookman, thank you. You know what? It's been an hour already. We've been hanging out and chit-chatting for an hour already, and that's huge. I can't thank you enough for that because of you guys, we've been able to have a great conversation, answer a lot of questions, and have some fun tonight. Hopefully this was enjoyable for you. Make sure you guys come back Saturday night. We will be back more than just me. We will be back Saturday night, 9:30 Eastern time. Then Sunday morning, we'll be back at 9 o'clock Eastern time. We love helping you guys out. If you guys need help, RotoHeat.com. You can get into our Discord where we're all in there chatting all the time, our Facebook community. I mean, we've got, thousands upon thousands of people in our Facebook community. We've got hundreds of people, probably more than that, in our Discord community. Follow me on Twitter at RotoHeatBrad. I thank you guys. I'm out of here. Have a good night. Stay safe. We'll see you later.